Hi there, it's Lara here with Witchy Wednesday for the week of January 31st to February 7th, 2018. So, today is the day of an eclipse, and you've probably heard a lot about it already. I've talked about it in previous Witchy Wednesdays, especially last week. I touched on it. So if you want, some further information, you can go check back to that video. And I talked a lot last week about, this in some ways symbolizing sort of the balance between masculine and feminine and bringing that back into balance. So I'm going to, leave that kind of thing because I already talked about that last week. And I'm going to talk to you about some other things regarding the eclipse and the astrology. And of course, I have the card for us for the week. And I have a lot to say. So I have some notes here. And so I don't forget anything. And I have the chart to show you. And, before I do that, I just want to remind you that if you want to get a personal reading with me, that you can do that by clicking on the link below or just contact me, on social media. You can get in touch on Facebook or Instagram, or you can email me at info at laranewell-barrette.ca. And I've been busy this week working on a lot of client readings, astrology and card readings both, and I'm loving it. The days go by like that when you're doing something that you're really into. So I really appreciate the support. And, if you subscribe to this channel, that would be great. Like, share, all that kind of stuff. Any kind of feedback is always welcome. All right, so getting on with it. I'm going to show you the chart and what it looks like. So again, don't get too worried if you don't understand all this gibberish right now, or if it looks like gibberish to you. But this is the astrological chart for the eclipse that's happening today on January 31st. And these two arrows that I drew on here kind of show you, right, where the, I'm looking at it backwards, where the moon, so the moon is here and it's opposite the sun, which is over here. And there's a cluster of planets there, and there's a few things going on here as well. And so this eclipse is being called a super blue blood moon lunar eclipse. So what the heck does that even mean? Well, here's the thing. All lunar eclipses are full moons, right? And all solar eclipses, which we're going to have one in February 15th, are new moons. And when there's a lunar eclipse or a full moon, that means that the sun and the moon are opposite each other in the sky. And when there is a solar eclipse or new moon, that means that the sun and the moon are beside each other in the sky, called conjunct in astrological terms. So right now we're having this full moon eclipse, and the sun and the moon are opposite, and the sun is in the sign of Aquarius right now, and the moon is in the sign of Leo. So it's a full moon lunar eclipse in Leo. And people are calling it a blue moon because you've probably heard the expression once in a blue moon, right? A blue moon just means that there's two full moons in a month. So this month, this is our second full moon. That doesn't happen very often, only every couple of years. But oddly enough, this year, we actually have a blue moon in January, like today, right at the very end of January, and there's going to be another one in March. So, that's kind of crazy, right? And why are people calling it a blood moon? Well, because the moon might have a reddish tinge to it in the sky. And that's just because the moon and the earth and the sun are lined up so well that, the earth is blocking so completely that the sun's rays just kind of move around or disperse, and it gives this red glow to the moon. So that's why it's a blood moon. And why is it a supermoon? Well, supermoon just means, and we hear that word a lot these days, it seems, but supermoon just means that The moon is closer to the Earth at a supermoon, closer than normal. And so it appears bigger, it appears brighter, and it tends to have a more powerful impact because humans are really closely connected, right, to the moon. It's the planet or luminary that has really, the strongest influence on us because it's closest. And we are, you know that the moon, I'm sure, has a big effect on water, right? Like on the tides. The moon is what causes the tides to rise and fall, and humans are made up largely of water, right? So of course it has an effect on us. So that's why this is the, full moon, super blue blood moon lunar eclipse. That's why that big long handle has been used for what's happening today. So you have to think about this. Our ancestors, when they didn't have the kind of astronomical or astrological knowledge that we have, they had a lot of astrological knowledge, but when they didn't, really know the science, then this might have been, it probably was kind of freaky for them, right? To see the moon glow red when the moon was really big and bright, or when a full moon didn't happen, or two full moons happened closer together, like those kinds of things would have been really significant to them. And they do hold symbolic meaning for us still, right? So this whole, I think it's really interesting that this is like called a blue blood moon eclipse, because if you think of that term blue blood, what does that mean, right? Blue bloods are royalty. And this eclipse is happening in Leo. So Leo is, think about, the lion, king of the jungle, Leo is very regal, right? Very much Leo, the sun is the planet that's associated with Leo, the sun radiating out. It's sort of like, our life force. So I think it's kind of neat how, it's a blue blood moon, and it's in the sign of Leo. So what else do I want to tell you? Let me just take a look at my notes. Oh, this is the first time that this actual configuration, like blue blood moon eclipse, has happened like this in about 150 years in this blue blood moon kind of thing. So that's interesting. And also, while I'm thinking of it, an eclipse happened at right near the same point in the sky in Leo. It's 11 degrees Leo. So it's sort of like wherever 11 degrees of Leo, or in the neighborhood of 11 degrees Leo falls in your personal natal chart, that's where you'll feel this eclipse the most in your life, right? So this similar thing happened back in 1999. So you might think back, if you can remember that far back. Some of us have been around longer than others, right? If you can remember back to 1999 and sort of what was happening around that time for you, then it may give you a hint as to sort of what would be impacted this time around, right? It doesn't mean the exact same thing, but it's sort of like the same area of life, right? And so for me, for example, this is happening in my 12th house. So, when you look at the chart, you could see how the chart is divided into pieces of pie here, right? Like 12 pieces of pie. And these are all the astrological houses. And each house is associated with a different sort of life area or life themes. And this will be different for everybody, depending on your date of birth, your time of birth, your place of birth. And so for me, this is happening in my 12th house. I'm hoping the lighting is okay here. It seems a little bit dark from my view, but hopefully you can see. And so for me, like the 12th house is a really kind of, it's a spiritual house. It's a house that's very sort of inward. It's the house that's associated with the sign of Pisces. So the end of the zodiac, right? The culmination of things. And so for me, there could be some kind of insights or changes, or my attention drawn to anything that's involving the 12th house. So it depends, right? Like if it's falling in your first house, for example, it could be, you drawing your attention to like, some kind of personal transformation, maybe even your appearance or something about your personality that, you may suddenly go, this really needs to change. And so then you take the steps to do that, or somebody else draws that to your attention. So the other thing I wanted to mention to you is that the effects of an eclipse. So you might have been feeling, just like, if you're particularly sensitive, you might feel the moon cycles, or you might feel the effects of a full moon happening a few days before it even happens, right? And so you may have been sort of feeling this lunar eclipse energy building. And the thing about eclipses is their effects tend to last longer than the effects of a full moon. So most astrologers say about 6 months. So this, whatever's happening now, and it doesn't mean it's going to happen today, but just playing out over the next little while, will tend to, kind of go in a cycle for about the next 6 months. And usually eclipses are some kind of, crisis point. And when I say crisis, that doesn't mean there's going to be an accident or an emergency or, anything necessarily bad happen. I mean, that could happen, but those things happen to people on, all the time. But it's like a crisis of, and what I mean by crisis, it's like this sudden realization. It's like, it's like the lights going out and then back on again. So we get this awareness. It's either internal awareness, like we become aware of it, or something external draws our attention to it, right? So that's how that works. So also, just like any kind of full moon, a lunar eclipse, again, it's a full moon, right? It's a time of completions generally and culminations. So this could be a big ending in some way for people. Whether, again, it sort of depends on where this falls in your chart, but it could be like, a big project you've been working on. It could be, you suddenly sort of, just deciding you're done with certain relationships or certain modes of thinking, certain beliefs, jobs, that kind of thing. So, and the other thing is that because of where this eclipse is falling, like in general, eclipses sort of draw our attention to that need for balancing, right? Balancing internal, external, like I mentioned last week, the masculine and the feminine, that kind of thing. But the sun is in Aquarius right now, and the moon is in Leo, right? So this is kind of drawing our attention to the need for balance between what's very personal and heart-centered to us, that's Leo, right? And what's more impersonal, or the needs of our selves and our true selves, and the needs of the group, which is more Aquarius. So that could come into focus for us right now. And this eclipse being in Leo, it's really saying to us, okay, people, time to really be true to yourself and to shine from a place of authenticity. And in doing that, you can help the group, right? So, there's so much to talk about here. What else do I want to say? I'm going to say one more thing before I get to the card. So there's a couple of different aspects happening in conjunction with this eclipse, or in relation to this eclipse. And when I say aspects, that's like conversations between the planets, right? That's how, when we look at an astrology chart and we see all these lines going back and forth in the middle, those are conversations that are happening between the planets and certain points in the sky, that kind of thing. So there's a few significant ones happening in terms of this eclipse. And one of them is what's called an inconjunct to the planet Neptune. And so an inconjunct is an aspect that sort of requires some adjustment. It can be a bit sort of like confusing. And it's interesting because Neptune is the planet associated with Pisces. Neptune is, known for its nebulousness kind of thing. Like, it's very ethereal. Neptune is, it's about illusion, and it's also about like sort of like the connection to something bigger. And so I'm going to tell you a brief story. Last night I watched this. I never really sit down and watch TV on my own, right? But everybody in my house was kind of doing their thing. And I was pretty tired. I put in a long day yesterday. So sat down, turned on Netflix, and this show caught my attention. It's called Shipwreck of the Unbelievable. And in my mind, I had associated it with this thing that I had seen, this news piece I had seen at some point about these statues being pulled out of the ocean, these goddess statues. There had been a shipwreck, and I guess there was this archaeological discovery, right? So in my mind, I kind of thought that that's what this was about. So I just sat there and I started watching it, and this show was fascinating to me. I am really interested in archaeology, actually, and anthropology. I have a background in anthropology. When I was a kid, I used to think I was going to be Indiana Jones, so I'm really drawn to that kind of thing. And so this show was just amazing. And I won't go into all the details because A, I don't want to give it away, and B, I don't want this video to be an hour long. So anyhow, so my son got into it too. He saw me watching it and he came and started watching it with me, and we were just blown away by the stuff that they were discovering and the story behind it. And it was so like these like magical creatures, statues that they were pulling out of the ocean, and it was just incredible. So when the movie's over, we're like, where is this exhibit, right? It seemed like it was in Italy somewhere. So we start looking it up, and then we discover it's a totally fake story. It's a mockumentary. This artist made this up. And all the art, like, this guy is an incredible artist. I can't even remember his name, but if you want to look it up, Google Shipwreck of the Unbelievable. And so anyways, we were kind of just like, it was like cognitive dissonance. I was, what? What do you mean that was fake? I can't believe that was fake. And my son felt kind of jilted and ripped off, whereas I was just amazed that this guy pulled this off. Plus his artwork was incredible. And so that is as I went to bed, I was thinking to myself, this is so cool. It's so reflective of this eclipse, and in particular of this aspect to Neptune, right? I mean, even it was a show about like underwater archaeology. Like, it was very Neptunian, and the fact that it was like, it totally pulled the wool over my eyes. It was this big illusion that this guy, created. And so there can be an element of that happening, is what I'm trying to say here, where we're kind of like, what just happened there? I don't understand. Did that really just happen? Or, kind of like, it can just seem a bit confusing, and we may need to sort of adjust in some area, adjust our thinking, adjust our understanding, that kind of thing. So there's that. And there is also the fact that, there's other things I could talk about and go on and on and on, but there's the fact that Mercury, the planet of intellect, thinking, communication, the mind, is moving into Aquarius today. And it's comfortable in Aquarius because Aquarius is also an air sign, and Mercury is, Aquarius is about intellect and thinking and thoughts and that kind of thing. So Mercury is moving into Aquarius, and so this is also like we might have some sort of aha moments, right? And it might be that much more powerful because of the eclipse. And with that, I'm going to show you the card that came up for us today. It's the card of the Magician, again from the Rider-Waite Tarot. And when I got this, when, I shuffled the deck and I cut the deck and I flipped over the card, and I just laughed because, first of all, the Magician is associated with Mercury, the planet of Mercury, which I just mentioned to you. And this is so appropriate for this eclipse. The Magician is all about manifesting, and about channeling the power of the universe, right? And he tells us that we have all we need to create what we want. And if you take a look, he's got all the tools he needs there. That is, he's got one of everything from each suit of the tarot. So from the minor arcana, so cups, pentacles, wands, and swords there. So he has all the tools. He's well balanced. He's very intelligent and also very focused and concentrated. And so again, this is sort of all coming together, drawing our attention to the need to really focus on being true to ourselves, to look after ourselves, to stand in our power, be proud of who we are, like a Leo. Use our creative life force to make ourselves happy, and therefore, to make the group happy, right? The greater good. So this, he's got some mad skills, this guy, and you can see one hand pointing up, one hand pointing down. That is indicative of the saying, as above, so below, right? He is channeling the power of the universe to manifest in his life, in reality, to make something real, right? That's talked about it a bunch of times before. Saturn in Capricorn, make something real, right? From your heart center, Leo. Use all your brain power, Aquarius, Mercury, that kind of thing. So the other thing I just wanted to mention quickly before I close out here is that on February 2nd, which a lot of people might know as Groundhog Day, which it is. It's also my niece's birthday. Happy birthday, Haley. It's also the pagan holiday or Celtic holiday of Imbolc, the witches' holiday of Imbolc, which is also known as St. Bridget's Day or Candlemas. And so this is a celebration of, sort of coming out of our cave, right? Like think about the groundhog coming out and letting us know if we're going to have 6 more weeks of winter or an early spring. Well, the day of Imbolc falls between, it's like right between the winter solstice and the summer solstice. So it's kind of like this hit of relief, like spring is coming. It really is, right? And so it's a good time for purification. Like we may start getting inklings to do our spring cleaning at this point in time, and any kind of purification rituals, right? Like get all those cobwebs. I've had the windows open on and off here over the last week, partly because there's been sickness in my house, but just feeling like we need some fresh air. And so you can look up Imbolc. I won't go into all the details here and see if there's, if that resonates with you and you might like to mark that in some way. But if nothing else, just realize it's a hit of optimism for us. Spring is coming for us in the Northern Hemisphere, obviously. So I think that's about all I want to say to you. There was a lot of stuff, I know, and I really appreciate you hanging out with me for this whole time, and I hope you found it helpful. If you want to get a personal reading, then please do connect with me. And I do astrology reading, I do card readings. I've been doing a lot of combo readings for people, which is both astrology and tarot, and that's been pretty cool and going really well. So I will leave you here. I have to go to the dentist today. But, self-care, have to look after ourselves. And have a great week, and I'll talk to you again soon. Okay? Bye-bye.